Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast, the podcast designed to challenge you to break the mold that average has on the world. Each episode offers insights directly from those who choose to break average every day. Now for the latest insights, here are your hosts, Paul Gustafson and Barry Smith.
Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast. I'm with Barry Smith. We are having fun already. It is 2023 for everybody that's listening and watching. And Barry, Happy New Year.
Dude, I'm excited. This is going to be a good year. We're talking about a great subject today. And, my vision for you, for me, for everybody listening in here, make 2023 your best year ever. I fully believe that can happen. I think, Paul, we can be a part of that for our listeners. I really do, because we got some great topics coming up this year. But hey, what we do is we show up, we get real, and we just try and add value. So what do you say, man? Let's get her done.
Well, I like this. Like we get a chance to be a part of somebody's year, right? We get a chance to be able to, and this is, I'm speaking for everybody, anybody that's listening or watching, you have an opportunity to help be an encourager. We talked about that last time. Help be an encourager to better their year. And let's be honest, right? It's been tough. 2020, 2021, 2022. Those aren't the easiest years in history, world history. They're going to be remembered as some tough years. But you know what? We're still here. Happy New Day, right?
Happy New Day. Happy New Day.
And there's the miracle in each day that we have. And we get a chance to be maybe a miracle for somebody else. So yeah, it really could be the best year ever. And I think it's mindset, right? When you get into it.
Definitely.
And my colleague and I were talking about this the other day, and you and I have had these conversations too. You know, we could approach the day like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. No. I get to do this. I get to do this, podcast with Barry. I mean, it's awesome, right? We get these opportunities with individuals and teams, and we have moments of days that are going to be something we'll remember for a lifetime if we so choose. Yeah. So it's really mindset. So start with that. We're talking about this is the year of growth. That's the way I want to kind of set the table here today, Barry. This is the year of growth. What does growth mean to you? What does a growth mindset mean to you?
Wow. Great question to start out the year. I think first and foremost, it's setting the intention to grow. I'm going to bust it out early this episode. You got to find the environment where you can grow in, right? I think one thing, as hard as the pandemic years have been, they taught us a lot. They changed our world. They forced us into embracing technology more than we ever had. Mm-hmm. They forced us to deal with isolation in many cases. For many of us, they totally changed up our workplace. Mm-hmm. Or we've come back with hybrid. Many of the clients I'm working with now, but they're done. They've made the decision. They're working in a hybrid schedule, in the office a couple of days and out the rest of the time. Some, my kids, my youngest and his wife, pretty much full-time external workforce. And this was after having a big, beautiful office in Boise, Idaho. But that's changed their lives. It's given them an opportunity to live in Oregon most of the year. And so our whole world has changed. And it's been, let's be honest, for most of us, it was kind of like, let's just make it through us. Let's just make it through us. And some of us found some time, right, to maybe grow through that time, but it was really about survival. It was difficult. Now we're kind of, we're into, well, it's still here. I know it's hit your family and hit my family again, just in the last couple months, with bouts with COVID. Mm-hmm. But it's just our reality now, right? And so we're back to, I feel like this is one great thing about 2023. We're back to now where we can really plan. And honestly, with what we've been through the last 2-3 years, we should be able to make it through anything, right? I mean, this was tough. And so now it's like, okay, what am I going to do to set myself up for success for this year? What kind of environment am I going to put myself into? And what steps am I going to take? And here comes my key. What steps am I going to take to close that gap between what I know and what I do? Because I still think that, like John Maxwell says, that's the biggest gap we'll ever face. And I think we continue to face it. And we'll probably all face it till the day we're not here anymore. So in the interim, what do we do to squeeze that gap? And that's going to be a real intentional effort on my part. We shared an episode or two ago, you and I both have, I don't find by coincidence, but certainly not by any planning on our part, the same word for 2023, simplify. Yeah. And that word's going to help me achieve more than I ever have, because I'm I'm a high I personality, easily distracted. I've probably been a professional get distracted guy. I've been very, very successful at getting distracted in the past. My entire life, more than a half a decade of constantly being distracted. And so it takes intentionality on my part. It takes growth on my part to overcome that. And so I'm excited, man. I got the tools, I got the resources, I got the right accountability brothers. So I'm excited, man. This is going to be a good year. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm
glad to be riding the bus with you.
And we're on a bus. Let's start with that, right? So I'm an engineer, and you are in construction. So let's tie a little bit of this into it, right? So as an engineer, I took a lot of physics classes, and there's something called momentum, right? And of an object at rest stays at rest, but an object in motion stays in motion. And we talked about the power of movement not too long ago, so I'm not really building off that, but I think it's so important for us in 2023 to move.
Yeah.
Don't sit still for long, because if you sit still for long, I'm dealing with a construction project that's taken forever to get done in another piece of property that I've got. And the only way to get progress is to move. It's the only way to build inertia and get momentum going. And let's talk about that, right? How do people, if we're on the bus, we've got to get moving on that bus. And I think sometimes we wait to get the bus going because we're waiting for all the right people to get on the bus. Jim Collins, I get it. But sometimes maybe we're on the bus. It's time to go. Let's go. And we're going to pick up some people along the way. The bus is meant to pick up people along the way. Not everybody that goes to school is at the same bus stop at the very beginning. The bus driver is going to stop and pick up more people. So get on the bus, move, and you'll pick up some other people. So let's talk about that. What are your thoughts on movement and the importance of just having that forward mindset?
So there's great discussion already. So in my opinion, there's two kinds of movement, right? There's movement that keeps you busy, and then there's movement that gets you productive. Two completely different movements. They can both build momentum. We can get a lot of momentum building us on busy work.
Yep.
But I want to change that up a little bit this year and really get into the being busy, being moving in productive things. Yeah. And so I spent some good hours at the end of 22, really thinking into, all right, how do I set myself up for success? How do I stay consistent, right? Mm-hmm. How do I stay on track? Because again, I'm a guy who will jump into a certain process or plan and run with it for 30 days and then get distracted, and then I'm not using it anymore. So I kind of did a review of all the things I implemented in 22. Now, when I say implemented, that doesn't mean that I was still implementing, right? I tried something new. I got a result, just like our mentor, Paul Martinelli, teaches us, you got to take action to get a result. That result will help you figure out the next step. So I really took a hard look at the things that I did last year that helped me be successful, and maybe the things that didn't. and I started kind of laying out, what's my day going to look like? How am I going to get started? How am I going to manage myself? How am I going to keep track of my priorities? How am I going to get things done? How am I going to move that needle, stay on track, and just make sure I'm getting the best return on investment out of every minute I invest during the day. I know from experience, good experience, that will get us there. It's just a matter of kind of stringing it along, building habits, building patterns, words we've talked about last year in the podcast. Mm-hmm. And so it's really been, okay, let's dial this up. And so I've got a very specific way that I'm starting my days, routines that I want to put together, because I know for me, I know it's not for everybody. Some people can kind of flip that switch, but for me, how I start the day is kind of how I do the day. Right. And so if it starts in chaos, it's, not untypical for the rest of the day to be that chaos element. If I start with structure, get dialed in, set the intention, and I've got some new tools to add into that as well. I think it's going to be a lot better, really hit some big goals this year. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and you bring up a lot of great points, right? So you do add new tools to the toolbox. Right? That's a question. You add new tools to your toolbox. Yeah. But it's more than a question. It's really a declaration for all of us.
Great word.
Because if we are starting the same year with the same toolbox every year, and you're expecting a different result, then you've got an insane toolbox. It's not a good one. It's insanity, right?
We've got 27 screwdrivers and no hammer.
Yeah. So change your tools out, freshen them up, figure out what's not working, get rid of the ones that don't work. If you got good ones that work, use them.
Yep.
But if you've got areas that you need something else, find some new tools, guys. You got 12 months this year to be able to pack a new toolbox to be able to get ready for 2024. And I know I'm already talking 2024. Hey, this year is a setup for next year. All right. 2022 was a setup for where you are right now. You and I and all of us listening, watching, we're in the position that we're at, not because of what's happening externally. Yes, there's an impact of that, but it's because of what decisions and choices we made internally. Intrinsic motivation is really the key. So if we're motivated, we're going to say, you know what? I need some better tools. I need to refine it. You talked about setting the intention, not just for the year, but for the day, right? Happy new day, right? So we wake up, it's a miracle. Each day is a miracle. We see it as such. There's always something to be grateful for. Yes. Now, what are we going to do with it? We get to do something. Set that mindset. And wow, it's pretty powerful. But I do want to talk about those extrinsic elements that happen, not the intrinsic ones we're motivated intrinsically more than extrinsically all the time. But what about the extrinsic elements that take place that sometimes throw us off? Like somebody bumps you and on the way into the line, and it just throws you off. Your vector gets changed. How do you deal with the unexpected?
So I love that question because it's reality, and I want to go back to what you said a couple minutes ago and tie it all together. Use the word declaration, and that word just jumped out at me. It honestly had not been a part of anything I'd really thought into, but when you said it, it just boom hit me. Because one of the things I'm doing this year, I've got what I call a vision wall, right? So there's a wall above our dining room table. And last year I put very strategically 17 picture frames up there. Those acrylic ones, you kind of screw the base onto the back and stuff, and 17 of them in about a 3x4 grid, different sizes, but to put the things that are really important to Cheryl and I. And the one non-photograph of those 17 is one of my thank you cards that I send out. And one of the things I'm doing this year, and goes to the declaration and goes to setting yourself up for strength or for success, when those external influences come in, every day I take a look at what my to-dos are for the day, and maybe some bigger goals as well. But I say them out loud, almost like an affirmation or a I am statement. But I recognize that, that building what matters, people, thank you card, and think into what I'm working on, the impact that I'm going to have on people. And I just go through my daily goals out loud. And I do that. This is something totally new that came out of coaching conversation I had last year. And I'm doing it, to your point and to your question, I'm doing it to anchor that idea of not only what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it and who I'm going to become in the process. And I feel like if I can anchor that in the morning, then I'm going to be much more mentally fit to take on some of those external, challenges, distractions that come at us every day. So there's my plan. I hope I end up with some social proof, but I'm excited about it. I just, for me, again, and I know I'm not the only one. So easy to get distracted. So if I can start out my day with intentionality, anchor in some positive thoughts and the goals, the things I want to achieve and why, it's just keeps me going in the right direction.
Yeah, this is really powerful, and that's really, you're setting yourself up with the tool to really make an impact. And I put, I don't know if this will make sense. This is fresh.
You need a minute?
No, I got it. Intention without declaration.
Ooh, here we go.
Is just fantasy. Intention without declaration. If like, okay, I intended to do it. Like, how many times have I made that an excuse, thinking, hey, look, badge of honor, a badge of courage. I've done it with my wife. Like, hey, I intended to do that. I intended to do the dishes. I intended to do that. Well, no, declaration. Go back to 1776. Our nation said, you know what? We don't just intend to be a free nation. We declare ourselves to be a free nation. And when you set that declaration in place, you're like saying, I'm going. This is true intentionality. And I'm moving forward with this. I'm declaring this. So I go back. Go ahead.
I got a new one for you, man. We'll have fun with this.
Yeah.
How about if we created a declaration of significance?
There you go.
How do you like that?
I take it. Declaration of, and it's not declaration. You didn't say declaration of success.
No, I was very intentional about using the word significance.
Yeah. And tell everybody why that's important to you, because I think I'm echoing with it.
You absolutely, you kind of, we kind of tapped into this before when we were talking about, we often talk about our trip to Guatemala in 2013 and the impact that had on us personally, not just the impact we had training 19,000 leaders down there in 3 days. But it's the first time, at least to our knowledge, I'm sure John Maxwell had probably popped this out in some way, shape, or form earlier, but it's really the first time this idea of success versus or in lieu of or as related to significance came out. And he basically made the statement after our third day of training. And this was our first, this is the first outbound trip doing this, responding to a president, a leader of a country to come help develop them. And, guess what? Growth, our topic of the day, and leadership principles.
Yeah.
And he made the statement, once you experience significance, you'll never settle for success.
That's right.
And so that, I remember that, just like you remember. I remember where I was at in the room when he made that statement. I can remember where I was standing when he made that statement. And I can't, man, I've probably used that phrase 1,000 times since then, but it's one of those things that I'll just never forget. Every time I hear either word, I think of the other and the relationship between the two. And later he kind of summed it up like this: success is what you achieve in your own life. Significance is what you help others achieve.
Ooh,
I love that, man. I mean, that's who I think we were created to be. I know you and I don't do this podcast for our own success. We do it to help people, because that's the kind of guys we are. That's what, speak for myself, and I know I'm speaking for you too, but that's what fills my bucket. making that impact. So yeah, success might give you options and might put some money in the bank, but significance at the end of the day, that's your legacy. That's what's really going to make a difference. So significance is what it's about for me.
I love it. I mean, why are we on this planet? If we're on this planet just for our own success, okay, maybe you'll hit it,
Lonely
maybe you
journey,
won't.
man. Lonely journey.
Lonely journey. But
Gordon Gekko.
we're on this planet to make a difference in the lives of other people.
Yeah.
You know, it's the journey of significance, right? There are significant moments, there are significant days, there are significant opportunities and connections. And some of those are, I'm a person of faith. I think God orders some of those things. He sets them up like, hey, look, I've just created a moment of potential significance here. Meeting my future wife, that was a moment of significance, right?
At
Meeting
least
the
for you.
yeah. And it, but we're stronger together, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah. And I put, as you were writing, I write, there's a difference between intention where I just say I plan to,
Oh,
and another one where I say I will. So I'm, for me, and maybe for everybody else, maybe this is helpful. Instead of just saying, hey, I plan to go do this, I plan to do that, I plan to. Okay, that's good. That's great intention. Change your I plan tos to I will statements. Because at the end of the day, we're judged by not what we plan, but by our declarations of what we're going to do. We're judged by our words. When I say something like, I will go do this, I will go, I will go. With John, I'm sure it started off with intention, like, yeah, Guatemala sounds good. Yeah, maybe I should do that sometime. Sometime I'm going to find some time to do it. And then at some point he says, no, I'm going to plan to do, I'm not going to plan to do it. I will do this. We'll bring others in. And that's what's so cool about the will statement is you get to invite other people on the journey. Say, hey, jump on the bus. Let's go. We're going to go make an impact here, Guatemala. I'm going to make an impact around the corner after this hurricane, after this snowstorm or whatever it is. All right. There are storms all around us every day. And for me, I'm being fully transparent. I've let storms stop the progress, but really the storms were there to help propel me forward into an area to make an impact. Maybe the storms aren't there to stop you, but it's there for a reason to help you be even more significant, for you to be able to seize that moment. So I want to talk about storms here. So does that make sense so far?
No, it totally does. I'm reminded of, as you know, and many of our listeners know, both myself and my wife Cheryl, for a number of years, were very involved in the Maxwell live event, the live event in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, and I'm sure this kind of started after that Guatemala trip in 2013. But as we would be down there early before everybody arrived and be setting things up and getting ready for the event, and I know Paul, played this live stream every once in a while. We pray around the big room that we were going to be in and just kind of had our internal circle. But I'll never forget him saying, guys, typically we would talk about what's it going to take to create a successful event. I mean, that's a vernacular that typically would be used prior to any big, expedition into anything. But Paul changed that up. He says, what do we need to do to create a significant event? And it's so different when you think of what you're doing in that way. That's why I've come to believe that when you do what you love, when what you do really makes a difference in the lives of others, that the financial success, right, will become a byproduct of that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we want to be significant in what we do. And that's our legacy. That's the legacy we leave behind. Success is not going to make a difference after you're gone. Maybe you leave some financial, legacy on, and maybe that gives someone else financial opportunities. But the real legacy is in the significant way you impacted lives, and how, maybe some of the good ideas, good thoughts, good habits that you modeled, go on to the next generation or on to your coworkers. I know that's something I think about a lot now with kids and grandkids. Every time I'm with any of them, I'm like, man, what can I do to be a better model? So that that they can learn from both the good things and bad things I've done,
Yeah.
right? But learn those lessons, and someday I won't be able to help them. I won't be able to guide them. I won't be able to mentor them. I won't be able to talk with them. And so, you gotta make every day count, man. That's what growth is all about. Not just growing you, but growing others.
Yeah. This whole idea of growth is so powerful. If we can get, to this day, I remember sitting in 2012, John Maxwell just wrote a book called it was the Laws of Growth book.
Right? 15 Valuable Laws of Growth.
15 about, and he's teaching from that. And I don't even know if this is in the book, but this is what he said. I was in the room. He's talking about how he used to be goal oriented, and there's nothing wrong with the goals. Hey, look, it's a brand new year. I'm sure you've set lots of goals, lots of resolutions. You know what? You might hit some of those. You might not hit many at all. I don't know. But that's the struggle and the challenge with goal-oriented thinking, is that we can hit our goals, but then what, right? It's like, okay, now I got to restart. Or we can not hit our goals, and boy, that, talk about significance. You don't feel significant when you miss your goals. At least I don't.
No.
But if we flip from goal-oriented to growth-oriented, everything changes.
Yep.
And here's what he said that just I'll remember forever. He says, when you're growth oriented, you never get bored.
Yeah.
And I love that thought. It's like, and it's changed everything for me. I still have goals, but those goals are just mile markers on the journey.
Yeah. Well stated.
It's all about growth. All right. It's like, what am I doing to grow myself? What am I doing to encourage growth in others? We're all on this journey, and we have a chance. I'm looking at your book that you published a few years back, Leadership by Invitation. Remember that?
I remember that. It was inspired by our experience in Guatemala. Flip it around. That little boy in that picture down below, was a son of one of the firefighters of the group we trained on the third day of training down there. And that inspired me to write that book.
And what I realized, Barry, I don't know if and the way you're speaking to me is really connected, but the invitation is an invitation to be significant.
Yeah.
It's not an invitation for success by itself. Success is a byproduct of significance, right? Don't be hungry for the success. Be hungry for doing something that's going to be significant in the lives of others. And that picture shows that. The message is there that shows it. What we're talking about shows it. But I do want to talk about some of the challenges, the storms that come. And here's where I think a growth mindset helps us through some of those storms. It makes us stronger. And there's a poem. I'm going to share this. This is from my wife's book. She wrote a book called Permission to be Bold. And it keeps echoing in my mind as we're talking. So I pulled it up real quick. She labeled this section "Good Timber." I'm not sure if that's the name of the poem or not. But she says, here's a poem that shifted my thinking on challenges and weaknesses. She says, good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. The further sky, the greater length. The more the storms, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. And that's by Douglas Malloch from a poem called Good Timber. And I love that because I remember when she found this, and we were dealing with a tree. We got a tree behind us that's seen storms after storms after storms. It's still standing strong. And there's another tree. It was an evergreen tree that maybe its roots didn't go as deep, and it didn't same storm. It wasn't actually it was in a spot where maybe the storms weren't as bad because it was a little bit more of in a valley compared to this other one, but that one didn't last. I'm like, wow, look at that. And he makes a point, and she went back and did the research. These trees are stronger. Trees that are in storms,
Yes.
the wood stronger.
Yeah.
You want your house built with the tree that went through the storm. And maybe those that need to be led by those that have gone through some storms. So it's just an encouragement to me, like, wow, we can be strong, man. We can be strong despite the storms.
It's a great analogy. Coming from the Northwest, living in the Northwest most of my life. I love that poem because I lived that, right? I lived in that environment, had big trees, everywhere I lived. I know that the house I grew up with had two really, really big cedar trees that survived this Columbus Day storm, which I think was in 62 or 64, before I was even born, but survived that big storm in the Portland, Oregon area. And then we had a bunch of trees where I raised my kids in the Columbia River Gorge in Oregon. And it always blew there, man. If you know anything about the Columbia River Gorge, one of the top 3 windsurfing areas on the planet. Winds in the wintertime of 100 miles an hour are typical, and I can tell you firsthand, being in construction, doing civil construction, done a lot of clearing in my life. And you can just see, those trees that have been through the worst environment, toughest obstacles, constant battering, yet they're still standing. Something to be said there, man. And I think you're spot on, Paul. This is life lessons, and credit to Barb too for find that poem.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I mean, just every word out of that poem just resonated with me because I've been there. I've seen that, I've shared with you. We have a family house on the Oregon coast where the trees are all leaning, from the wind direction. All the branches are tore off on the windward side. And, it's just one of the things I love about the drive down there from Portland is it just so magnificent to look at that stuff and just appreciate what it's been through. One of the worst weather spots on the West Coast is on our drive down to the house. And man, I'll tell you, good life lessons in there. But it is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? We've all heard that.
Makes you stronger.
It does. It does. And so embrace those tough times. Embrace them. Use them to strengthen yourself, to grow. But when you come into it, like you're saying, with a growth mindset, I think you really amplify the value you get out of those experiences. If you play the victim role, then that's all it's going to feel like. You play the victor role, like I'm going to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to become better and stronger. Those are the kind of tools that you use to live a significant life.
Yeah. And it's so true. This is such a good discussion. We could go on for a long time, but I want to share this thought. Barry, how many times do we come up with an excuse as to why we shouldn't grow or why we won't grow?
About as many times as we wake up.
Yeah. All right. It happens a lot.
Least.
I remember when I was in high school, I'm running track, and we're at T.C. Williams High School. You ever seen the movie Remember the Titans?
I know this story.
I know you know the story, but so that's where we were running on their track on that day. We were 6 miles away from their school. We're in the county of Fairfax County. They're in the city of Alexandria. And this was a few years after the big not Super Bowl, but the big state win for Coach Boone. But my coach, I was running a relay, and I had this little naggy injury, and I was kind of playing that victim thing that you're just talking about with him, with Coach Windsor. Not a good move. so I was like, oh, I'm not sure, Coach. I'm not today. I got kind of a little muscle twinge here, not doing good. And Windsor grabbed me and he says, if you don't run today, what excuse will you make tomorrow? And I'm like, what's that? he didn't have to repeat it twice, but I had to think about it through it. Right. And I was like, yeah, coach, I'll be ready. I'll be ready. Because I didn't want to be that guy with an excuse. And how often have I been that guy with the excuse? If I don't run today, what excuse will I make tomorrow? And the road to significance is not paved with excuses. I think that's the key, right, Barry? I mean, if we can just say, you know what, there's no excuse. Well, if there's no excuse, then boy, you're on the path to significance for sure, 100%. But if you're just dealing out excuses, why I intended to do something, but I didn't, then we're not going to get to significance.
I love that. And I love that story. For those of you who haven't picked up a copy of Imagine, Paul Gustafson's most recent book that came out last month, he tells this story, right? And so I knew the punchline. What excuse are you going to make tomorrow? One of my favorite takeaways from the book, Paul, I mean, bar none. I mean, not only is Remember the Titans one of my, favorite movies of all time. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more sometime this year on a podcast. I don't know, just maybe dropping something in there to think about, but
it'll be fun.
I just love that because I think that sums up the mentality we need to have, right? What are we doing today that we're going to have to make an excuse for tomorrow? Ooh.
Yep. Yeah, it's so good, man.
I was, man, I plug myself into so many things where there's good value. I was talking to somebody and where I was listening to something, and the question came up, when were you at your best today? I got to figure out where I just heard this. When were you at your best today? This is a question that he was posing to himself or his family. I hate it when I can't remember where I heard things, but it just struck me that, wow, that's a great reflection piece, right? If we got to the end of the day, maybe do this with your spouse. What if you and Barb did this, or Cheryl and I did this? Just made a point every night. When were you at your best today? When were you doing something that was growing you? When were you doing something that was moving you closer to the significance that you seek? When were you at your best to, really become that person that you want to become something more, to make a greater impact?
And I would imagine and that's a great question. And the answer to that, I would imagine that it's when we're the most vulnerable, right?
Ooh, yeah.
You can't be at your best unless you are willing to be vulnerable. Back to Coach Windsor, I didn't want to be vulnerable initially. Like, Twins muscle.
Yeah.
I had a really good run. It was a good race, right? Because I stepped into it. It wasn't just an intention. I started the day intending to run, and then I kind of backed off a little bit, and then he kind of gave me a thought. I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'm in, Coach.
Probably more than a thought.
I'm in. I declared it. I'm ready. I'll be ready, Coach. I'll be ready. Yeah. But we've got to be vulnerable to find that significance.
We do, because it hurts. It stretches. Growth. Where's growth? Growing pain. I mean, there's so much to speak into this, the idea of growth. But you've got to, a phrase I love to use, you've got to do something. Okay, if you guys are taking notes, here comes one for you. You got to do something you've never done before to become someone you've never been before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a phrase I use all the time. I use it with clients. I use it in trainings. And it's the truth. That growth is going to hurt a little bit. It's going to stretch you a little bit outside your comfort zone. Many times it's going to be something that you haven't done before. But think about this. When you've done something difficult, and this isn't a question just to you, Paul, certainly to our listeners as well. When you've done something you didn't want to do, when you did something that, you thought, oh man, I just need to get this over. I've found that more often than not, I feel really good that I did it. Maybe I wasn't real excited about it going into it, but when I actually do it and get it done, I'm like, I'm glad I did it. So what do we learn from that?
So powerful. And of course, I want to pull the James Allen quote, right? quote is, men are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. And then they remain bound because of that. Right. I think it's something like that.
Yeah.
And
John Maxwell has a version of it too. But yeah, basically people, this
yeah.
is the way John's used it. Okay. So I love the James Allen side of it. John's used it like this. People come up to me and say, oh, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do this. And I want to do this. I'd love to do what you do, and they so much want to change their circumstance, but they're not willing to change themselves. And that math doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. That math doesn't work.
Yeah. If we change ourselves, we can change the world.
Love that.
And that's the opportunity in front of every one of us here in 2023. You change yourself, you change the world around you, and you may change even more than that. That's significant. That sure trumps success any day of the week. Yeah. So, let's do it. So let's kind of land the plane on this. Is so good. We invite everybody, come check us out on our web pages and social feeds and all that. And you can visit us at breakingaverage.com. You can go to Barry's site, Building What Matters. We're there. We want to support you guys. We want to encourage you. Be growth minded. Don't just live with intentionality. Live with declaration. Go forward with that. But Barry, share a tip or a challenge. Tip and a challenge if you want, just for everybody, so that we can get on this bus and start moving.
Well, I think, and this might have been kind of like my tip I shared on one of our previous episodes, but we're talking about growth, and growth means transformation. Mm-hmm. First step to transformation is awareness. And I'm almost sure I shared this earlier, but it's that relevant in what we're doing. Start challenging yourself. Am I doing my tip or my challenge right now? I'm caught up, man. I'm just so taken away by the conversation we've had today. Yeah. All right. So here's the tip, right? Here's the tip. I love the question. Reflecting at the end of the day, when were you at your best today? Okay, so there's your tip. Add that in. Add that into your daily routine. Do it with your spouse. Yeah. Maybe you do it in the morning with a coworker. It doesn't matter, but add that in and add it with somebody else, right? I found that all the suggestions I ever get about do this, when I do it on my own, the success rate is just not there, right? If I do it with somebody else, then maybe the significance rate is a little higher, right? So do that with somebody, share that with somebody. And then I think the challenge is take action on it. Yeah. Whatever you come away with is what environment, what circumstances were you at your best? Then build on that. Growth, another thing John says, growth doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily. So what kind of process are you putting into place to daily move forward? I love Scotty Fay just celebrated a birthday here last month. Oh wow. He used to say, what if we could just get 1% better a week? Yep. 1% of anything doesn't seem like a lot, right? So what if we could just get 1% better a week? Well, at the end of the year, if you just go with the raw numbers, you'd be about 50% better. But if you do the real math on that, it's even more. Yeah. But I think the key in that is how you're going to get 1% better this week. Where were you at your best? Don't think about where you're going to be at the end of the year. If you got a vision, awesome. If you got some year-long 12-month goals, awesome. But if you focus on that 12-month goal, I promise you, you will fall short. Now, why do I know this? Because I failed, because people I coach have failed, people I mentor fail. You cannot focus on a 12-month goal. You got to focus on what you need to do the next 4 or 5 weeks to achieve that goal. Mm-hmm. We'll go back to what I mentioned a couple episodes ago about 5-week chunks. Look, this is the tool I use with my clients. This is the tool. 5-week chunks. Mm-hmm. And growth is no different. However you want to grow, whoever you want to become this year, do it in 5-week chunks.
That's so
I
cool.
promise you, it will make a difference. And if you need help, let me know.
Yeah, you know what? Here's a challenge for you, Barry. You need to come up with a 5 week calendar, like so that it's got. Think about it. So there's 52 weeks in a year. That would be a 10-month type of count. A 10, and it wouldn't be. We won't call them months, but it would be divided up in tenths, right?
Okay.
And the growth path there with that view of the 5 week chunks is pretty powerful because we can do some significant, back to that word, significant things can be accomplished in those 5 weeks. And if I've got 10 of those done by the end of the year,
Bingo.
boy. And I've done the 1% thing. You said 1% per week.
1% a week. Thank you, Scott Fay.
I'm 50% better than I was. You know? And my 50%, the question I'm asking myself right now as we're recording this and sharing this, right now we're recording this. Actually, it's still 2022. We're days away from 2023.
Tell them.
I'm telling, I know, I've just told everybody we're days away. But the truth of it is we're planning and we're already stepped into the mindset of 2023. And as I look back in the growth of the year, have I grown 50%? No. Have I grown? Yes. But boy, 50%, does that seem doable? Actually, it does. I can grow 50%. So I love the challenge that you have there. Lots of stuff. I would say this. I love that approach. And as you look at the rest of your year, you've got so much in front of you, right? We're airing this here on the first Thursday in January. That means you've got 51 and a half weeks ahead of you. And there are some things that you can mark on your calendar. I would say, use your calendar as a tool. We talked about tools earlier. That's a pretty significant tool. And mark some times on there. Here's some suggestions. One, find maybe 3, 5, it doesn't matter, 3 to 5, it could be more, events that you can go to that you know is going to stretch you and grow you and make you stronger. It may feel like a little win. It may make you a little vulnerable a little bit, but that's okay because it's going to make you stronger, right? Strong trees, good timber. It's going to make you good timber. All right. Look for those events. Find them. They're out there. There's opportunities. Seize on those. Those are memories that'll be remembered forever for you. They'll be significant. All right.
It's an opportunity to get an experience that will change your life.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. You know, we've referenced our experience in Guatemala a couple of times.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of times over the last few episodes here. Life changing for me, turning point, inspired me to write my first book. And this is a guy who in high school and college couldn't stand English, you know, and I probably would have been voted the guy least likely to write a book. And then things change, right? And Paul, he's just a master author, man. I mean, this dude, gee, many Christmas. If you want to read his good stuff, go Library of Congress. It's right there, first floor, Paul Gustafson section. All good.
I've never been there. I need to go there sometime.
Oh, what? Come on, man! I've been there, and it's in your backyard.
I know. I'm just south of there. Hey, you know what it is. Like if it's in your backyard, you tend to kind of hold off and doing it.
I'll do it in my free time.
And that really brings up a great point because we think, oh, well, I can always do that later. If you don't run today, what excuse will you make tomorrow?
Yeah, maybe that's your event. Maybe that's one of those 3 to 5 events you're talking about. Maybe I'll come on visit you. We'll do a little rundown of Library of Congress. I'll get a selfie with you in your little section there.
By the way, everybody's invited to come to CadreCon 3 in February in Washington, D.C. We'll be there. I'll be there. Mark Batterson, there's lots of great speakers there.
Wrote the forward to your book.
Yeah, he did.
Great guy.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a fun day. It'll be a growth day.
Growth day.
There are growth days every day.
Happy growth day.
Yeah, happy growth day. Love it.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. I go through, and Barry's got a different approach than I have. I'm going to try that this year, by the way. Thank you for the new tool. Picking a book a month, or in this case, let's just say pick 10 books this year, because that'll map to the 5-week chunks that Barry's talking about. Look, don't go overboard. I know what it's like at the beginning of the year, like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every single day. And by the 4th day, you've missed it, and
Right.
you're eating
National
the powder
Quit
milk.
Days coming up pretty quick here. National
Yeah.
Quit. It's a real thing.
Be realistic with your goals, guys.
Yeah.
Let your goals be mapped to growth, not goals in themselves. Okay. So pick 10 books to read this year. Doesn't have to be 12. I happen to read a bunch of books each year, but I use lots of different ways to read my books.
You cheat.
Kindle, yes, I use Kindle.
Audible.
I use Audible.
You can't count that for reading books. That's listening books. You have to break that apart.
But you know what? Your mind doesn't know the difference. It's amazing, actually.
My mind knows the difference. My mind knows the difference about what you say you're reading. You didn't read it.
Oh,
Listen.
Yeah,
I'm old school, baby. I'm gonna read that book. I'm gonna mark it up. Here's one right here I just did recently. Yeah, and it's all marked up. I'd open it up, but it's like, I mean, look, the random page. Look, random page.
It's here, like invisible.
Random page. Look, highlight. Random page. I did not pick that page. Highlighted.
Yeah.
You got to have the book. We can't go down the road, dude. This multitasking. Have we not been through this? You're going down the road. You tell a story in a book about not remembering something that happened at the traffic light. So maybe because you're audibling while you should be focusing on the road, and that's not reading, that's listening. So you and I need to, I guess
there's different types of learning, Barry. We're having fun. Hey guys, whatever works for you. Okay. Right. Just get out there and learn. And I used to, when I was a kid, Barry, this is funny. Like we would have to read books for school, and I'd be the guy like, is it in movie format? Can we just watch it in a movie?
You were Cliff Notes before Cliff Notes. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I love Cliff Notes. I still like Cliff Notes, but I haven't looked at Cliff Notes. Do they still make those things?
I don't know. You were probably like 7 years old, imagining how you could fast track school, so you just go right into inventing and imagining.
That's true. I mean, imagination can take you off the rails, but it can get you back on the path. So I would definitely do that. I would find an accountability group. I would find the books to read. And the other thing my wife does, I think, is really powerful. She does self-retreat days.
Ooh.
This is one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. And she's got other folks doing this now too. She'll take like a day and a half, like an overnighter, and she'll just Airbnb it somewhere. And she'll just spend that time from the evening until she comes back, and then 24 hours later, and she comes back and she's like battery recharge. It's just phenomenal. And she'll tell me that it wasn't like it was every moment was amazing. There's some tough stuff that happens when you reflect and you start thinking and you're going through that process, and then there's this breakthrough that takes place. And then you come out of that, and then you're more focused. So that's pretty powerful.
I love that. I'm thinking about maybe doing that weekly.
Yep. Weekly.
Yeah.
That's good.
Day and a half. Yeah.
She tries to do it once a month. You do it weekly. And, learn from others. There's so many great tools out there. But anyway, this has been phenomenal.
Outstanding
discussion. So we better land the plane. Any final thoughts as we close this out?
Just be intentional. I mean, it's be intentional, take action, go back to the way I want to set up my day. I could say, set up my day, set up my year, set up my month. I think I want the setup for everything I do to be the same thing, to go back what probably my big takeaway from this conversation, brand new word, brand new idea of declaration, right? The declaration of significance. I'm thinking of that, man. That might become part of some training I do. Think if we all had a declaration of significance. Maybe that's a document or some thinking I'll use on my road to sovereignty.
I love it. Guys, let's do it. Make this year the best ever. You have a big part of that. You are responsible for making these choices each day, and seeing each day and seizing each day as that opportunity to be significant. So let's do it, Barry. Always have fun with you. Thank you, my friend.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Breaking Average podcast. If you loved what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe. This show was produced by R Squared Multimedia. All opinions and comments expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or views of any of the advertisers, producers, or platforms. As you continue your day, what is one action that you can apply from this podcast to your life? Tune in for our next episode as we continue to challenge everyone to break average.
I mean, you think about it, there's lots of doors, but there's only a few keys.
Ooh. See,
Right.
now I would go the other direction. I would say there's not very many doors, but there's more keys than we can even think about. Think about all I found some keys this week. Looking through a box, had a whole drawer. I got keys in my safe. I don't even know what they go.
I can go with that too, right? So I think you can have a plethora of keys.
Plethora.
You could have a plethora of keys. I mean, just
How you say it in Virginia? Plethora?
Whatever.
Let's get into it. I'm sure you have a plethora of things to say on today's podcast.
It's plethora.
There you go.
All right, here we go.
All right, 2, 3, 7.
3, 2. Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast. I'm with Barry Smith. We are having fun already.